because yoga is meditation. It's about creating awareness, right? Being in this moment right now. And you have to use, and that seems like so basic of a thing, right? And it doesn't matter if you're young or old, it just seems like a basic thing. But when you start to really explore consciousness, you see that that is a rare event to be here. Like, we're always distracted. And so you have to use what you have at hand to kind of jog yourself into the moment. And that breath, it's an amazing thing. Because, for one, you do it 21,600 times in 24 hours. 21,000. I mean, that is a crazy number, right? So it's something that's constantly going on. It's always available. And it's a very, like life, the forms of life are so strange, like the variety and like how things spin out, like the ocean. If you just notice how it moves, how it's got this rhythm, this ebb and flow of wave pattern, right? And then like jellyfish, they're on the waves, they're also undulating. So everything's kind of having this pulse and this rhythm, the whole universe, right? And the breath is right inside your own body, right in your chest. And it is that rhythm that's this most basic rhythm of life is taking place right in your chest. And so that's why it's such a tool for coming into the present moment. And so that's why you grab onto it as anyone that's doing a meditation practice of any kind. And then you make sound with the breath because it's hiding. That rhythm is, there's an atrophy. So part of being distracted and not being in the moment is not breathing well. So there's a figure that I don't think it's actually true, but they say it, that you only use 1/6 of the capacity of your lungs. So that like when we're breathing, normally there's all this musculature that's meant to move. Like the breath is a piston-like action. And that atrophies. We don't use it. So we barely breathe in, we barely breathe out. And so you make the sound just by creating that sound. You automatically use more of the capacity. So it makes you breathe out more and breathe in more. And so, but then you get that very odd sound going that your kid will go, "What is that?"
But so what is the purpose of combining breath and asana at the same time? Why is it not done separately? I understand the importance of breath, but we could do just asana separately and then sit down and do the breathing part.
Yeah, well, partly that's for the same reason that you do ujjayi. So the breath is inhibited. It's we've lost touch with it, so that it's so you have to coax it out of hiding, and asana helps you do that. It's just that simple. That when you and the positions, especially vinyasa. See, it's so interesting that before Patabi Joyce, that now it's unimaginable to think that of asana that's static, that doesn't have movement associated with it, right? Every hot yoga, all these styles, they're all based on what Patabi Joyce started. Because before him, like if you took a class in the 70s or 80s, you wouldn't move like that with breath. And so the vinyasa, it follows breathing pattern. Okay, so if the breath is an expansion, in breath, the out breath is a contraction, and those movements are imitating that, and they're helping you to bring it out of hiding, so that when you lift the chest in third position, say, or in upward facing dog, that's helping you breathe in. And when you fold forward in an out breath, that's helping you breathe out. And so that's one reason why you connect those. But, and what you want to be able to do, though, is learn from that and then actually separate them, Mark, so that you would want to be able to not move and still breathe well. Okay, so you allow that asana practice to teach you about breathing. And then there's also this whole energetic aspect, that whenever you're talking about breath in yoga, you're not talking about, see, this is what separates it. Because you can talk about breath like in this world, it's very scientifically. It's respiration. It's an exchange of oxygen and CO2. And the diaphragm goes, it contracts as you breathe in, and it releases as you breathe out. And so you can talk very mechanically and scientifically and anatomically about it, and physiologically. But it's also, just by the name of it, pranayama, it's an energetic event. So that breath, so they say there's two sources of mind activity. Okay, so that yoga is to stop mind activity. And there's two sources of it. One is the movements of prana that are coming on the breath. So that the breath contains the prana. Okay, and so part of the job of connecting asana with breathing is to churn, to generate prana, to make it come out of sleeping. So part of being of a distracted state, and like we said, when you don't breathe well, there's a prana or life force is inhibited. And so you're doing asana with breathing to wake up the energy inside the body that's associated with the breath.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people tend to ask about the intensity and the loudness of breath. You yourself said during the workshop that if I want to energize myself on a weekday, I should start breathing more energetically when practicing. On the other hand, if I'm too fired up, it's a good idea to slow down.
Yeah.
What would be your idea of an ideal tempo and an ideal loudness of breathing? Or is it just individual and we should just follow our intuition?
So no. It's partly it's partly individual and partly an intuition, but what you want is a range. Okay? Think of it, what separates any type of artist, like a musician. Okay? So what they'll play, what kind of subtlety, what kind of softness, what kind of, wow, so soft, so just melodious, it's so quiet. And then wow, what? They can go to this other place of chaos. It's just so, almost noise of, just an explosion of sound. All with this consummate skill, right? And this is the yogi with the breath. You can be so subtle, and then you can be total power. What is that? And you can do it. So you can do it. You can go so slow and then so fast, without any being harassed, without any conflict, right? So that's a yoga sutra, right? That the third one that's on asana says tato dvandva anabhigataha. So that when you're doing the asana, you're not constrained by the opposites. That applies to breathing. So meaning that you're so versatile to the breath, and you're so tuned into it, and you're a hold of that technology. So it's a technology, this breathing that you're using, and you're versatile and responsive. See, and what can happen is like when you can lock yourself out in different ways. Like if you breathe too forcefully, how will you listen? Where's the listening in that? Right? If people do it, right? Then it's not even nice to practice next to them because it's so much unawareness is happening, right? And but they think like, I've got it going, I'm churning, you know? And or you can also be very timid and barely breathing at all. And then what's that? Right? So you want that range and skill to utilize it. Because like we've said, everything here that you can apprehend with the senses is always changing. You see, and that is so vexing to us because we hate change. For one, because it's asking, it's a discipline to be with change constantly. Wow, that's harrying, right? But that's what this is. You have to negotiate it. And so your breath will reflect that. At one moment, intuitively, it's going to go way out there. And you're going to follow it. And then another, it's going to be way in there. And you're going to follow it. And so it's just part of becoming skillful. And it's like that. It's like a music. It's your instrument, your lungs. Like you learn to play it. And it's your expression. So you want the good range.
It is very often said that when you do the breathing during practice, it should be free breathing.
Yes.
But there are some asanas, and obviously everybody can name a different name, which are very difficult
Yes.
for some of us. So if you enter one of those difficult ones, like Kapotasana for some people, or any other you can think of, or the breathing is very far from being a free one, right?
Yes.
So is there some sort of a borderline where we should say, okay, I'm not doing this asana because I cannot breathe in this asana anymore. It's too difficult for me. I have to wait. I have to prepare myself for it. Or alternatively, should I just go for it and hope that someday I'll start breathing freely in Kapotasana?
Yeah, that's a really good question too, and you want to explore that. What he said, is there a limit? And there's some edge there. And so that, because to some degree, when you put yourself in this challenging predicament that tests your breath, well, that's a part of bringing it out of hiding, right? Can you think of anything more like, than dropping back in Kapotasana? All of a sudden you go, right? You're all breathing for once, right? So it's so positive, right? But you can also strain. And so for one, to me, when the breathing is very forced, then you want to see the asana as happening on a learning progression. Okay? And there's always a modification. There's always one step more or less. Okay? And that progression starts from samastitihi and builds to every asana. And your breathing, your ability to breathe shows you where you are in that progression. So if you're in a very extended state and it's so tense, you've maybe gone too far in the progression, and you've got to find a different stage so that you don't panic yourself or cause, because you can injure yourself if your breathing is too strained and too forced. But like you said, there is this line where also if you're always timid and staying back of the line, then all this kind of progress, this development that could happen won't, because like you said, it's surprising how at first it can be a big struggle and breathing is terrible. But then you do it every day, and 2 months later, what? Where was that? Where? No more panic breathing. Now I've settled with this. And I would have never settled with it if I would have just backed off of it. So you got to play this line. And it's definitely part of the reason for new asanas is to explore new breathing, new capacity for breath, along with kind of body, also like back bending or forward bending or it's different categories.
You said at the beginning that breathing during practice prepares us for pranayama. Is there any technical difference between the type of breathing we do when we do pranayama and the type of breathing we do when we do ujjayi breathing during practice? Are those different types of, or is it just the same type of breath?
So to me, what distinguishes pranayama from the asana practice is one thing, and this is the essence of pranayama, kumbhaka. Okay, so that you can play around with retention in the asana, like with the Uddiyana Bandha Kriya. It's a nice thing to do. But the emphasis will never be really focused on the gap. It'll be focused on the breathing more. But pranayama, you reverse that. Okay, and you intentionally, the breath then serves the retention. So that's a very different feeling. And when you're doing pranayama, if you treat it like the breath, like you're going to do kumbhaka and you're going to go. No, that's possible, but it takes a lot of skill. If you're going to take a long, long out breath and then you're going to retain. No, it's more that you're going to go. And explore the not breathing, the stopping, and again, it goes with that energetic idea. Asana moves energy. Pranayama stops energy. You stop pranic movement and there's a big switch in doing that.
A lot of people who start practicing yoga, they just do asanas. Hopefully they also do yamas and yamas.
Yes.
But you never know.
Yeah, that's right.
And very rarely they do pranayama.
Yeah.
What would be your selling point to those people? Why they should start doing pranayama?
Well, I mean, the main or a really good selling point is the very fact that it just improves your asana practice. Like it really will transform your asana practice to take up a pranayama practice.
In what way? How does it work?
Well, because breathing is the key to opening your body. Like, if you want to get flexible, there's a genetic component, of course, right? So you might just start off very flexible. But breathing just helps you to open to that. And also there's a rhythm to the asana. Okay, and they even anatomically they call it a skeletal rhythm. So you think of your skeleton as working rhythmically. Okay, and so that asana done statically without breath is lacking this organic quality, this very natural thing that's supposed to happen. Okay, and that will kind of it will make the experience less fulfilling, and it'll, in a practical way, it will make you stiffer or less strong. It will emphasize kind of your weakness, whereas breathing well will kind of open you up to getting stronger or getting more flexible. And then also, you have to remember that the asana, in a way, is the lure. Lures you into yoga. Right? And if you're going to stay with yoga, there's very few people that will really stay with it for a long time that only do it for asana, for exercise. Because it's so hard. And because you run up against the ego so forcefully. And so eventually your reasons for doing it deepen. And that even the attraction to yoga, like my teacher used to say that you're so fortunate if you came into contact with yoga. And he said, if you come into contact with yoga this life, it happened in the previous life. And it's very auspicious. And it's because, so we all have this, what I call this homing device. This innate image of self, right? That we're here for a sacred purpose, not for physical reasons, not to use the senses to enjoy this material, but for this seeing, spiritual seeing, and that turns into a sharing. Like your whole purpose for being here is to help create the spiritual, the identification with the spiritual aspect of existence. And so, like the geese, right? Winter comes and they go, okay, let's go. And they fly south. But they don't sit in a classroom to learn that. They don't go, okay, you gotta know that on this date at this time, this is when this happens, and they're like, okay, well, I got to memorize that. No, they don't. They just know. That's what they do. And the salmon, right? When they need to spawn, they're out in the ocean. How will they know where that river is, where they came from? And they go find that river and swim up it against all that current, all the way back. Whoa! They didn't sit in a classroom to learn that. Okay, and this is what you and I have. We've got this part that's pulling us against the material, against this distraction. But we're not like the geese. We don't listen. Like, forget flying south. But eventually, hopefully, as you walk your path, you come around to it and you listen to that. You heed that inner part. And then so you go from asana to pranayama. And from pranayama to silence and stillness and a new place, a new perspective. And so that's why you want to do pranayama.
Okay. But some people say that pranayama is something that can be also dangerous, that you shouldn't really start practicing pranayama unless you are on a certain level of your practice. There is, at least a theory like this is pretty common, that first you should be sort of an advanced yogi in terms of asana, and then you should start pranayama, and preferably under the guidance of an experienced teacher.
Yes.
So what's your opinion on this?
I'm agreeing, like that. So on many levels, so it's very important to take this seriously. Prana, we're talking about the force that it's moving. It's the cyclical force of life, the ebb and flow. It's so deep. Apana, prana. And when you do pranayama, you are taking that and you're trying to control it. stopping activity, stopping cyclical activity. And when you stop cyclical, it's like you're holding back the flow of the entire universe. Your body, your psyche can like, pow! It's so strong. And so you have to respect that. And then also, there's a training, a discipline, a rigor that the asana practice gives you to be able to even think about that. And also, it's a very physical thing, this working with breathing, that you can see. Like, the belly has to be strong, and the limbs have to be strong, and even your lung capacity and the musculature that moves the breath has to be strong, and it takes development. But it really is, to me, it's more in the energy, okay, the psychic energy that because you're also, pranayama, it means, okay, it's an interesting word, prana, and then yama is restraint, and ayama is unrestraining. Okay, but that's tricky because you're unrestraining by sealing. Okay, that mudras, those are bandhas, they're mudras, they're seals. So you contain life force. You trap it like a pressure cooker, right? And you know, if you work with a pressure cooker, right, you turn it on, it's sealed, and then it starts heating up, and then silence, and that little bubble starts coming up, right? And if you leave it on, and you go away, what's going to happen? It's going to blow, right? So then you have to like turn the burner down and manage it so it's perfect, just the right pressure. So much skill is needed to do that. And if you don't if you don't seal it, then it's not really potent. But if you seal it, that's potent. And also, you guys, this is so big because so part of this distraction that we create is because of this, they're called root causes of pain. Okay, that yoga is a response to suffering. So we're all suffering. We're walking around afraid and angry and jealous and hurt, wounded, and by life. So you kind of come out. So remember we said there's two sources of mind activity. So one we said is the prana, the movement of breath. The other is vasana. So when you come out of the womb, you're not just a clean slate. You're not just an angelic cherub. Right? No, you have certain tendencies, certain bents. Already you're coming out with attachment and aversion. And then also life experience happens. Your parents, the environment, so much failure. You get hurt. You get abused in one way or another. It's not perfect here. Life's full of bumps and hard knocks and obstacles. And we build up so much fear around that. And so much shutting out of life. And shutting out of memory and our opinion of ourselves. How we feel about me and about the important people around us and work and all this connection to life. And so when you seal, you start to see that. It starts coming up right in front of you. They call it hala, that poison. You start seeing the ugliness, how angry I am at everything. And then I have to handle that. Right? And if I can't handle it, and it's hard. This is not easy to face that pain that is there. It takes everything. It can blow you out. And so you have to be ready. So when you're doing that pranayama, you're asking to see how I'm blocking myself. And then you have to look and go beyond that. Right? You have to contain it and be with it and see it and transform it. But some of it is so rooted that transforming it is almost impossible. So you're left with nothing but to be with that piece of you. That, right? And so that's what you're asking for. You do pranayama.
Wow. I'll never do it again.
I'll never do it again. That's right.
Assuming I decided to do it. Assuming I decided to do it, what would be the ideal time to do it? Before or after the practice?
That is a very hard question. Okay? To me, it's a really hard question. And I don't know if I have a definite answer. There's benefits to both. And because it takes a lot, from my experience, either way it takes a lot of discipline. But in some ways it takes more discipline to do it afterwards. So, definitely Patabi Joyce, he said do it after. And, but it's also like if you get up really early and you're kind of not ready to do a lot of asana, it's just so perfect to do the pranayama first. And I do that more often than after myself and really like it. And it's just a great way to begin with pranayama. It gets me ready for asana. But then on the other hand, that's after 20-something years of practice, of serious practice too. And so the logic of the other way is this whole churning, this raising of energy, and then becoming prepared to stop and do it like that. And so that is in some ways superior. Like it's a proper order. And whereas to do it in the first thing in the morning, it's going to be hard to raise that kind of energy and then stop it. So it'll already be raised for you when you do the asana practice first.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And in asana practice, we do it in a very systematic way. No matter what series you do, you always do a certain sequence. Do you also recommend to approach pranayama like this? Or should we just choose different pranayamas depending on our mood or our need?
Yeah, and there's a practicality to that to me, which I don't think it's as crucial with the pranayama as it is with the asana. And I also think that with maturity, with the asana practice, it also becomes less crucial, the order. Like when you're learning, which for me that's like 7 to 10 years of 6 days a week. Following the sequences is very key to getting the technology. Okay, but after 10 years, you gain some independence, you gain some skill, and so you can individualize more. And also pranayama, there is a set sequence in Ashtanga, but if you really do it, it takes not less than 30 minutes, as much as 45, depending on how long your retentions are. And so for most people to do like a 2-hour asana practice or even a 90-minute and then a 45, I don't know, it's not realistic. And if it is realistic, then you can do it. Follow the sequence every day. But just takes a lot of discipline and to do that consistently. And so in that case, if you're not going to do that, then to me you can pick and choose more, because I don't see how that, I certainly don't see that as harmful. Like to say, do like we did today. You do the first one. We did the A part. We didn't even do both parts of the first pranayama, and then we did the fourth one. That's a fine thing. And so you can do them in a pick and choose way, where you spend, it's better than none to do 10 minutes worth. And then you come to the same thing. Like, so if you do 10 minutes worth, then you're just going to do the first one for the rest of your life and never have any variety. That doesn't make sense in many ways. Like even physiologically and physically, like you would want variety and to mix it up, and also just for your mind and for interest. So you want to make use of the whole thing and change it up. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye. Did anyone